Travis County Courts now in session with Chairman Dwight Jewell presiding. The court remains in session till adjourned by Chairman Jewell.
Thank you. Our invocation tonight's by Commissioner Ferguson, and pledge will be led by Commissioner Taylor.
Bow our heads, please. Lord, we come to you this evening as we gather together to make decisions that affect the community in which we live. We always need your guidance, your love, your blessings. Help us here this evening in all that we are required to do, and help us as we live our lives to do what is pleasing in your sight and what is right according to your word. Forgive us where we fall short and miss what we should do each day. I also pray for those who are suffering tonight, that you may comfort them, bless them, and guide us in our daily lives as we try to help them. And all this we pray in your name, amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Okay. Well, welcome everyone tonight. Appreciate everyone that's here in the gallery and all of our commissioners. I think we've got a full crew except one. If we would, let's go ahead and check in electronically if you haven't done that yet. Let's see, Mr. Johnson, push your green button. There we go. Cord, I believe everyone's here except Mr. Walsh. Okay. Mr. Walsh did call me, tell me he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight, and appreciate him being excused. Also, Mayor Chambers is a bit under the weather. He's with us via Zoom. He will communicate with us that way if we need him to. Probably not going to need a lot, I don't think. Don't have really anything to add to the, let's see, in the way of announcements. I've had that. Want you to make note, please make note of the change of dates on next month's meetings, particularly our commission meeting and work session and training session. We have 5 Mondays next month in August. So the training, the mandatory training that the state does, sir. Yeah. Just make note of the change on the dates of some of those meetings, and there is a mandatory for any of the newly elected commissioners meeting that the state does that will be down at Franklin at Cool Springs, and you can get registered for that. They'll send out information just as soon as the election's over, but want you to go ahead and know that those dates so that you could go ahead and plan for that. One other announcement, then we'll get to the minutes. Mr. Burton, his mother passed away, and like to express our condolences to him and his family for the loss of his mom. Approval of the minutes from the June 20th meeting and the June 27th meeting have been distributed. I think we can take them all in one. Any corrections or deletions or additions to those sets of minutes? Mr. Ford?
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve by Mr. Ford. Mr. Taylor has a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes from the last meetings are approved. Amendments, let's see, of the agenda, anything that, was there anything that I know we added, personnel policy revision. That's ordinance 253, 2022-23 under ordinances, first reading. Was there anything else? Yeah. Okay. Was there anything else?
Approve the agenda as amended.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the agenda with the one amendment. Mr. Harsh, Ms. Jones gets a second. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Thank you. Okay. I did forget to mention under announcements, forgive me, that Mr. Johnson's daughter-in-law, Debbie, also passed away last week, and we'd like to express our condolences to little Richard and all the family. She was quite a sweet lady, and she's going to be missed by a lot of people. I had it in my head, I just didn't have it on my notes. All right. Citizens' response to the agenda items. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak to anything that's on our agenda tonight, please come up and sign in on this sheet. We'll call on you at the proper time. Certainly, if there's something that you're the petitioner on, such as some of the zoning changes and things of that nature, you don't need to sign in. We'll call on you if we're needed. If you'd like to speak, please sign in. Is the mayor going to try to? Okay. Mayor, are you going to be able to give us your report?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, we submitted our multimodal access grant for the sidewalk up Broadway, beginning at Depot Street, going to the intersection with First National Bank and the Mexican Grilled Cheese. So hopefully we'll get something on that in a few months. The Mental Health Task Force met last Friday, and there should be a proposal coming forth for them to use some American Rescue funds to address the mental health and substance abuse in Trousdale County. Right now, they're starting off with a pamphlet of information to print and send out to the public and put at various places around the county. And there should be something more as we're working on that going forward. We will be working with Middle Tennessee State University on a grant coming from the federal government to address mental health and substance abuse. So we'll be working on details for that. The Sheriff's Department also applied for a mental health transportation grant through the state. This is to help transport people that are having mental health issues to a facility so they can get treatment. Right now, they're just having to send officers as they can. So this should help me maybe help buy a vehicle or maybe some other expenses. And that is going to be at least $25,000. That my understanding is just because we applied, we should get at least $25,000. And that if we get score well, we should be able to get more than that. So that's really all I have for this month, Mr. Chairman. If anybody's got any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Anyone have a question for the mayor? Appreciate you trying to be with us tonight. Thank you, sir. We'll go into committee reports. Steering committee met July 5th. Had several things we went over. The main thing was the personnel policy and pay scale. It was sent back over to personnel for their final purview, and that's on our agenda tonight. We looked at some wording about inclement weather. There was addition of some additional wording on that to try to clarify the policy as a part of that. We also talked about how the transfer of powers, so to speak, the old commission, new commission, old mayor, new mayor, how that would proceed, and laid out these changes in these training meetings and dates and times for them. We also had a discussion about the EMS has a, I guess we would call it an educational incentive program. That's the word I was looking for. It was passed by ordinance back in 2013, if I remember correctly. Looking at possibly updating that to try to also include paramedics, EMTs, and such to that. Just an update on what is allowed and trying to set aside some funding for that. And that was, went ahead and sent that over to the full body, and we have that on tonight, and that will, the funding for that right now will come out of the ARPA funds is the intended use. Is anything else in steering that I failed to mention? Okay. Next is personnel, July 14th, Mr. Gregory.
No, that's me. No. We
I'm
met.
sorry,
no,
Mr.
Yeah,
Ferguson.
it's okay.
Thank you.
We met on July the 14th to try to button up the last piece of our, what we've been working on with the personnel policy adjustments. And this was a discussion on the implementation of the pay scale, which is being brought forward as part of a total package. And including that, we talked about the inclement weather policy, who's in charge, what conditions apply, when, you know, how would people be paid during that time period, things of that nature. So those were the two items that we spoke on the 14th.
Any questions for Mr. Ferguson? Okay. Purchasing, July 18th, Mr. Ford.
Yes, we met on the 18th of July, had a quorum, went over many different items. We found no abnormalities. Committee recommended to receive it. We voted to accept the report. Basically it.
Any questions for Mr. Ford? Okay. Budget and Finance met July the 18th. We did not have all of the end of the year figures yet, which is pretty normal. We did look at the financial summaries, what we did have, and our cash balance. And that was approved. Nothing showed out of the ordinary there. We discussed the necessity to add the 143 school funds, food services into the budget. It was inadvertently left out of the budget. The comptroller's office in times past had told us it didn't need to be a part of it. Now they think it does need to be a part of it. So we have that, and that's on here for tonight. It does not affect our budget figures in any way because it's federal funds that come in and go out. So it doesn't affect our tax rate or anything like that. Also, the EMS educational assistance, taking $30,000 out of the ARPA funds, just setting it aside for that program. So if we do have personnel that wants to avail themselves of that, that we'll have some money set aside and earmarked. That was within keeping with what the ARPA funds were supposed to be used for, and it seemed like a good use of that. Believe that was all we had, basically budget and finance. Was there anything else, Mr. Ford?
I just want to ask Miss Amy if she closed out her books. Still ain't closed them out.
Takes a while. Okay. Next, was any other questions on budget and finance? Okay. Parks and Rec, Mr. Gregory.
Yeah, we did meet on July 21st. First thing, we reviewed the minutes from the May 16th meeting. It was approved. Had 2 or 3 discussion items. Main deal was the pool season. The pool's coming to a close this Saturday. We wanted to get an update on it and, you know, make sure everything was still currently in place to close this Saturday. I think he gave us expense and revenue report, which we'll get another one next month for the final pool closing, but it is going to be a little loss. But part of the loss, I think, they had to put a new pool pump in down there this year, but we'll have our final figures next month. The next item was the ballpark lights. I think it's in motion. It's waiting on a manufacturer in Texas. I think it's been engineered approved, so it's more or less in Tri-County and waiting on the manufacturer in Texas. Maybe we can get started on it this fall sometime. The next thing we discussed was a Trey Park Playground grant. It is RFQ bids are out. I think the Professional Services Committee is supposed to meet August the 4th and open this and pick a firm for that. And that's about all we discussed. Our next meeting is August the 16th at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Any questions on any of that? Okay, see none. Mr. Noller, Emergency Services, July 21st.
We didn't have no quorum, so no meeting.
Have you rescheduled a date or for it?
Sure.
Okay.
Have not.
Okay, it's my understanding that one of the things that was supposed to meet for has been withdrawn.
Yes. Understand that.
Okay,
It's been
all
withdrawn.
right. Thank you. And any other reports, any other committees? Did I miss anything? Okay, see nothing. Okay, we'll move on. Get into our active business resolutions. First is resolution 2022-16-760. This is a resolution authorizing lease agreements and contracts. These are contracts that are extended for more than 1 year. Most of them have already been entered into for multi-year, and this is just to bring it into the current year's business, so to speak. Is that correct? Any questions on this? Mr. Gregory has a motion to approve. Ms. Atwood gets a second. Any further discussion on that? You got a list of them there, pretty common, pretty normal. Okay, let's do this electronic. It was just a second here. Okay, please record your vote. Okay, Ms. Jones. Okay. About has them all. Anyone wish to change their vote? Please record the votes. 19 yes, 0 no, it is approved. Next is resolution 2022-17-761. This is the appropriations to nonprofit and charitable organizations for this year. These were the amounts that were in our budget that we approved. Any questions on that one? Have a motion by Mr. Ferguson to approve. Mr. Harsh gets a second. Any discussion, any questions? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? Okay, please record your vote. Okay. Looks like all votes in. Anyone wish to change? Please record the vote. 19 yes, 0 no. It is approved. Next, we have resolution 2022-18-762. This is some road names, 3 road names that have come to us from the Emergency Communications Board. First one is Brandon Lane. This is located south of Hilltop Drive It's about a 9/10 of a mile south of Roger Street. Second one is Baker Lane, and this is located off Canoe Branch Road, about 0.62 miles west of Highway 231 South. And the third one is Stone Hill, one word, Lane. This is the north side of McMurray Boulevard on east, just on the western side of Hickory Ridge subdivision. That's the three road names. These are not county maintained. These are county named roads. Mr. Ford,
Make a motion to approve.
have a motion to approve. Ms. Jones, get second. Okay. Any discussion on this one? Ready to go? Please record your vote. All votes in. Anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Whitaker. There we go. Please record the vote. 18 yes, 1 no. It is approved. Next is Resolution 2022-19-763. This is a resolution declaring law enforcement equipment as surplus items so they can dispose of them. They will be disposed or sold per the way our policy and state law says that they have to do this. Any questions on this one? Mr. Gully? Have a motion to approve by Mr. Gully, second by Mr. Taylor. Are there questions? Don't see any. Okay. Record your vote, please. All votes in. Anyone wish to change? Okay, please record the vote. 19 yes, 0 no. It is approved. Next is Resolution 2022-20-764. This is on EMS educational assistance. Like I said, this was and is in place now, I believe, strictly for paramedics, if I'm remembering correctly. This would expand it to EMT, AEMT, and has a memorandum of understanding agreement there between us and the various schools and employees. This will require them to work a certain amount of time if they take care of it, if they take advantage of this, and if they leave, they can buy out whatever's left that they would be owing. Say it's a 3-year commitment and they work for a year, they would owe us 2/3 of whatever we put into it. So that's the way it's written. That's the way it works. Are there questions? Ms. Russell? Have a motion to approve by Ms. Russell. Ms. Jones has a second. Are there any questions on this one? Mr. Buckmaster?
Yes, I'd like to reiterate that the way this resolution and a memorandum of agreement is written, this is available only to employees of the ambulance service. It is not available to the public nor to any volunteers, and therefore does not build a pool of EMTs.
So is your suggestion to open it to all employees that no matter what department they're in, as long as they want the medical, EMT, AET, whatever, BBZ training?
When this was first brought up, many people asked me as a volunteer, would I be participating? They wanted to build this training amongst the volunteers. Well, the way it's written, it's not available to the volunteers. Again, it's only available to the ambulance service employees, the ambulance drivers. have to already be hired. I would suggest that you do away with a memorandum of agreement, open it to EMS employees and volunteers. And if a member of the public wants EMT training, let them volunteer for one of the organizations and build that pool as well.
Other discussion? Mr. Gully?
Just building off what Mr. Buckmaster said, if I understood where he's going, I think the idea for this originally was to help build the number of employees. We heard here that we were well understaffed. I know we have 2 drivers that we hired back in. I believe we paid those starting in March. Maybe we paid those for a couple of months. I think what I hear and what sounded good to me here in this case was an opportunity to open it up. If we're going to pay for someone to go pay for their school to go get this EMT or any further in those EMS or EMT piece there, that we might open it to build a larger pool. That's the goal here, it sounds like. Maybe that doesn't need to have to be done under this one, but we might need to look into that going forward. If we're having a problem obtaining employees and for this piece, it doesn't seem like the pool is large for us, that maybe we can open it up and have some employees that might, or not necessarily employees, but members of Trowser County that want to be hired under our EMS service and workforce, that maybe we could help them out as well with the same piece. As I mentioned the other day, there's the opportunity already exists for a K-14 education for any student that leaves any school, honestly. So maybe that recruitment is also available. I think this is a good move in the beginning, but it's something we might need to look deeper into as well.
Thank you, Mr. Gully. I do believe that this is kind of a benefit of employment. It's the way it's written now. And I don't know that we need to get into the funding of scholarships other than people that are already working for us, but that might be a separate issue. I do think that as we're amending this that was done in 2013, I think certainly we can come back, look at this at a later time and amend it if it passes tonight. To me, it's already in place. You're expanding it. To expand it again, it would take just a simple resolution or amendment. I would hate to see, if we do that as an amendment tonight, I'd hate to see it possibly defeated because people didn't feel like they had enough information on it. So I think it would be better to take it up at a later time. But certainly if you want to make, the motion to amend it and have the wording and everything ready, I think that would be in order, but it might be better to take it up as a separate issue, but that's just my thinking. Mr. Ballard, do you have anything to interject on that?
Resolution 2022-2764, I've looked at that and along with the memorandum, and it's a good start. And I've heard Mr. Buckmaster, but I do concur that it's probably better if we're going to expand this into the other areas. That would be the volunteers or elsewhere. We may need to do that under either a separate resolution or at least have it in writing what we're looking at before we can make a informed decision with regard to what your memorandum would look like and or your resolution look like.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Jackson.
As far as I can tell, there's no language in this that prohibits anyone from being hired by emergency services just as an employee and taking advantage of the opportunity to attend the school. Is that correct? Anybody in the county can be hired by ambulance services to attend EMT school, AEMT, or paramedic school.
Well, I think they have to have these certifications to be employed in these positions.
So you're saying that the ones that are driving now,
They're already employed, yes.
but
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't think you could hire someone specifically then to let them go to school. They would have to be, and we don't know how long that.
it doesn't say that though.
We don't know how long the driver thing is even going to be allowed. I mean, it was kind of an emergency measure, and this is one thing that was trying to piggyback on that to try to help that work.
Right, but
better.
a lot of people and places that I have seen hire someone with the intention of sending them to school so that they can work for them in the future. There's nowhere in the language of this that I'm reading that you cannot do that. Is that correct?
I can't answer that. I don't think it's language specific that says, it does say that it's employees that are in these roles, or already employed.
If they're already in that role, why are they going to school for it?
A lot of your EMTs would want to go up to paramedic level or vice versa, whatever. I think that was part of it as well. Certainly the drivers, I would think that you would have, would want to avail themselves of it, but there's nothing that requires them to.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, the drivers don't have any specific EMT training when they're hired. Nor would any other individual in the county have any specific EMT training when they're hired. I'm just saying, if you're short of employees that are trained, a lot of times, a lot of places I have seen in the past will hire someone with the intention of training them so that they, upon completion of training, they can work in that role, which is why you have the 3-year training, I mean, the 3-year commitment. And I just didn't see any language in there that says that anyone would be excluded from that.
Okay. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, sir. I would like to echo what Ken said. I do believe we should open this up to the volunteers on the fire department. Having served as a fireman, that would have been a tremendous opportunity. And there has been lots of occasions that it would have been fantastic if a fireman would have been trained in that as a first responder as well.
I agree with that 100%, but that's not what we have tonight before us. And it is a legal document that will have to have legal review. It does get into things with, believe it or not, federal regulations and things of that nature. So I don't think that's something that we can amend tonight. I think we would need to bring it back and address that at another time. I believe that's basically what Mr. Beller had already told us. Okay.
Sure. That's the side of the fence that I'd like to see us go down.
I think these are all valid points. I absolutely agree with them 100%. And it's just, do we want to go ahead and do this tonight, or we want to shut the whole thing down until we decide what else we want to add to it? I would like to see us, at least move forward with a vote on what we have. And if we want to come back and amend it later, we certainly can. Okay.
Commissioner, Chairman Jewell, I'd like to add to that, what we can do here, as you had mentioned, go ahead and move this along tonight, this part of it. But we could also charge the steering committee to either tackle this and send it to the proper committee to add to it later, like we talked about, so we can have the verbiage. Or maybe we could just go ahead and ask County Attorney Beller to maybe look into this a bit, so we can look at the verbiage in step 2, because it looks like it's a concurrency that we would like to open this up to others. We already kind of see that, but I agree we need to go ahead and move this forward tonight, what we have in front of us.
Mr. Gully.
Forward, is it time sensitive at this point, or is it something we could table and put it all together? I mean, in other words, do we have an employee that is ready for this piece and we need to get it moving now to get them in school? And if we do, I'm fine with moving it now or tabling it and bringing these pieces all together at once.
I can't answer that. Can anyone answer that? I think my understanding, we had at least 2 people that were expressing interest in doing this, but I don't know that for a fact. That's my understanding.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, Mayor.
I want to answer a couple of questions. The first one is Ms. Jones. Currently what the practice is, and this has been put in state laws, you could hire people as a driver. Within 12 months, they have to either be licensed as an EMT or an EMR, and that was passed by state law. We do have a couple of drivers that want to take advantage of this, so due to state law and their time restriction of 1 year, they have to be licensed. There is a time sensitivity to it.
All right, any further discussion? Mr. Harsh has called for the question. I believe that is in order. If you would, are we ready to vote? This is to approve what we have before us now. Certainly, we can come back and look at it and amend it if we need to at a later date. Okay, please record your vote. All votes in. Anyone wish to change their vote, please record the vote. 16 yes, 3 no. This is approved. Certainly, we can take a look at whether we want to expand this further or tweak the language in it. Now we'll move into ordinances. Ordinances, first one is ordinance 244-2022-14. This is general service appropriations, adding Fund 143. This is the cafeteria funding, federal funding that was left off of the school budget inadvertently. The comptroller's office said that we did not need to have 3 readings on it. It did not affect our other budget, that we just needed to have a vote on it so that it could be reflected in the minutes of the meeting. So that's what this attempts to do. Any questions on this one? Mr.
Move to
Buckmaster,
approve. Move to approve.
have a motion to approve by Mr. Buckmaster. Mr. Ford, second. Mr. Gully, do you have a question? Push the button, try to do both, but I'm trying to look to see, this way I know who got there first, is push the button. And I have a hard time seeing some people's buttons, so this doesn't hurt, is what I'm saying. But it's easier for me to do it that way. All right, any questions on this one? All right, are we ready to vote? Please record your vote. Like all votes are in. Anyone wish to change their vote? Please record the vote. 19-0, it is approved. Next is first reading on ordinance 250-2022-20. This is a ordinance to rezone 2 pieces of property. The property is identified as tax map 027B, Group A, parcels 37 and 37.01. This changes from R2 to R3. They're both located on Stott Street, Morrison Street in that area. This is our first reading. Are there any questions on this one? Ms. Atwood?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve by Ms. Atwood and a second by Mr. Gully. All in favor, record your vote. Did it take mine? Yeah, there it is. All votes are in. Please record the vote. 18 yes, 1 no. It is approved. We'll have our second reading and public hearing next month. Next is ordinance 251-2022-21. This is the franchise agreement with Piedmont Gas. I believe we have to do this periodically. They provide gas into the city. This has been looked over by the mayor and by Mr. Beller, I think, and just needs to be signed, and pretty typical what we've done in the past. Any questions on it? Mr. Gully?
The 25 years is pretty typical.
Yes. Okay. Ms. Jones?
To approve.
Have a motion approved by Ms. Jones. Ms. Baker gets a second. Any further discussion? We ready to vote? Please record your vote. All votes in. Anyone wish to change? Please record the votes. 19-0. It is approved. We can get that executed. Thank you. Next is ordinance 252, 2022-22. This is revising the language of Title 11 in our Hartsville trials for municipal offenses, dealing with such things as drinking and things of that nature. Trying to update these old municipal codes. Been working on this for some time. Are there any questions on it, what we're doing? Mr. Davis? Have a motion approved by Mr. Davis. Second by Ms. Baker. Okay. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, please record the vote. Or record your vote, or enter your vote, or punch your butt. Okay, looks like all votes are in. Please record the vote. 18 yes, 1 no. It is approved on first reading. Next is ordinance 253, 2022-23. This pertains to the personnel policy, the updates to it, and the wage study is implemented in it as well. And this was approved by the Personnel Committee on July the 14th. And we will have a public hearing on it in next month's meeting. This is the first reading on this revision. Mr. Gully?
You said this was approved by the Personnel Committee. So was the entire 58-page document looked at and approved by the Personnel Committee, or was that just portions thereof? First question I have, but I do have two.
I believe it was the entire thing. Mr. Ferguson?
Once we had multiple meetings, we did discuss primarily the adjustments that were being recommended by the mayor's office and had been reviewed by the county attorney. So we did from time to time go down into other areas. There were questions and discussions about things that currently existed. So I can't say we looked at every single item that we currently had already. Of course, we had multiple meetings, but I do know that each topic was addressed that was altered or changed.
That answer your question?
Somewhat, yes, sir. I appreciate the piece there. As you said, that was kind of a broad statement, 58 pages, I think it was. So there's a lot of pieces on that. So my next part of that question, as I want to go a little further, was in looking at the document itself, I tried to read it online. I don't have a paper copy that we were provided, and I was provided the full length adjustments this past Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, the 21st. It might have been Wednesday, the 20th. And in taking the time to read through that, an ordinance is a law of the county to an extent as we look at it here. I think it would be good, and to do our due diligence, that we have a paper copy of that in our hands of these 20 body members, and that you look through that, you know what it says in it before we move forward with a vote. Myself, I would like to see us table this until our next August 29th meeting, and then have that time in front of us to read through it, make sure we know where we're moving and looking at. My understanding as well is, in reviewing the wage study piece, they also, the individuals with that grant also wrote some of our personnel policy or what our positions were. Is that included inside this? I know that's a bit of a loaded question. As well as my wish to or make a motion that we do table. Is table the correct word, I believe, until the August 29th meeting? Postpone.
A motion to table would put it to the end of business on this meeting. The motion would be to postpone until a subsequent meeting, and typically you need to state in that motion as to which meeting that you're postponing it to. I think that's one thing that we've run into trouble with before is we kick it down the pike and never bring it back up. And so we certainly, I know that's not your intention, but I just, from past experience, we've had that problem. I do know that Personnel Committee has met many times on this, has went over it line by line, word for word, and did look at all the changes that are presented. And I think everyone had this email to them. I know I did. I had to assume everyone else did, but we can certainly, it's going to take 2 readings and a public hearing on it before it's passed. This is strictly a first reading on it. So we can amend it, certainly, if it needs to be, if there's something in there that's amiss. And if it's just totally wrong, then we just wouldn't necessarily pass it second reading. It was our intention for some time to try to have this worked out, I guess you'd say, and in place for new administration coming in, simply because you're going to have a lot of new people that haven't had the opportunity that we've had to go along as this process came to bear. It's not that we're trying to rush it through, but we were trying to dispose of it while it's this group to dispose of it. So, Mr. Gully.
I would still make that motion that I would like to see this postponed and put it in front of everyone's hands. I do realize it was emailed to us. I believe it was the 21st of this month. I didn't look just a few minutes ago. It was either 20th or 21st, which was either last Wednesday or Thursday when we had the full piece in front of us. And I don't know that every member of our body is able to gain access through email to the document. I would like to see it put in their hands, and we've all read through it. I'll make that motion that we postpone until the August, put this off on the August agenda.
Okay. I believe that the 2 members that do not get email did get hard copies on it. Mr. Whitaker, did you get a copy? Mr. Johnson, did you get a copy? Okay. I just want to, make that clarify that point. So your motion is to take this up next month's meeting. Is there a second to this motion? Mr. Buckmaster?
Mr. Chair, after reviewing the final copy that I received an email and finding several flaws with it, I will second that motion.
Okay. We do have a motion and a second to postpone this till next month for the first reading on this. Is there any discussion on that? Okay. Mr. Ferguson.
I'd like to say that we do still have plenty of time on this. This committee that worked on this for some time has it in a form now that's ready to be moved forward. This does take 2 readings, so keep in mind that if you postpone it until August, you will then have to continue to postpone it until September with a new committees being formed. And then you have new members that might not know anything much about it. So I think that we should probably vote against trying to table it for now, because we still have a month to look through this. And if we see some things we don't like at that point, then we could address it then. But that's just my 2 cents worth, because you're actually going to start to ask other people that don't have anything that may be new to the commissioner, to the committees to tackle something that actually the mayor and the county attorney have worked on for some time. But that's just my thought.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. We do have a motion and a second on the floor. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the motion. The motion is to postpone this, to take up first reading next month's meeting. It was made by Mr. Gully and seconded by Mr. Buckmaster. If you vote yes, green, you are putting it off till next month. If you vote no, it will remain on our agenda for tonight. So please vote. All votes in. Please tally the votes. We have 6 yes, 13 no. Your motion does fail. Okay, we do have ordinance 253, 2022, 23 still on our table. Ms. Baker? Have a motion to approve by Ms. Baker. Second by Mr. Burton. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Soon as she's ready, give us just a second. Did I hear thunder or was that my stomach? Oh, okay. I thought I was hungry. I didn't know. Okay. We are ready. Please record your vote. Okay, looks like all votes are in. Anyone wish to change? Let's see, we missing who? We're good. Okay, record the votes, please. 14 yes, 5 no. We did approve this on our first reading and we will have a public hearing and a second reading next month. Please, if you would, go ahead and get us some hard copies of this for the ones that need it. Thank you. We'll kill 2 trees. Okay. Next, we'll move into public hearing and second reading on these 3 ordinances. Ordinance 243, 2022-13. This is the zoning amendment clarification, updating developmental standards for mining activities and related services. We had this last month on first reading. This will be our second reading. Would like to open the public hearing on this issue. Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone that would wish to speak to this that signed in to speak? Seeing none, does anyone wish to speak? Anyone wish to speak? Mr. Ford? Mr. Ford makes a motion to close the public hearing. I'm sorry? Did you want to speak?
No, I wanted to make a motion to approve it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll go ahead and second it if I can.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, unless you want to call on me.
It's hard to see through that head and see that light. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm doing the best I can do. You won't have to put up with me much longer, I assure you. Okay, we do have a motion to close the public hearing and a second. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. We do close the public hearing. Now to entertain a motion on this ordinance. Mr. Ferguson, I believe you got in there first.
I did. Motion to approve it.
Mr. Harsh
Second.
has a second. Any further discussion on it? I don't see any. You want to do electronic? Have you got set up to do that? Like a record of this, okay? Please put your vote in. All votes in. Anyone wish to change their votes? Looks like they're all in. Please record the vote. 17 yes, 2 no. It is passed. Okay, next is ordinance 248, 2022-18. This is rezoning C2 to R1 located on Highway 25 West. Open the public hearing on this ordinance. Anyone wish to speak to this ordinance? Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this ordinance? Anyone signed in to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, Mr. Gully. Have a motion to close the public hearing by Mr. Gully. Second by Ms. Atwood. Okay. Public hearing is now closed. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Public hearing is closed. Now, interject a motion to consider this, Mr. Gully.
To approve the rezoning.
Have a motion by Mr. Gully to approve and a second by Ms. Jackson. Jones, sorry. You'll always be a Jackson to me. Okay. Any further discussion on this one? Okay, ready to go? Please put your vote in. All votes in. Let's see. Mr. Clarity. There we go. Believe that's all votes. Anyone wish to change a vote? Please record the votes. 18 yes, 1 no. That one also is approved. Next is ordinance 249, 2022-19. This is rezoning from A1 to R1 on parcels at the end of Thoroughbred subdivision. This is trying to clean up some of the zoning maps. Mr. Gully, I'm sorry. Public hearing. Open the public hearing on this. Mr. Barton, you're the petitioner. Would you like to speak to this? Don't need to unless you want to. Okay. Anyone else? Would anyone like to speak on this? Would anyone like to speak on this? Okay. Mr. Gully, have a motion to close the public hearing. Ms. Atwood has a second. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay. If you would, motion on ordinance 249, 2022-19, A1 to R1 on Thoroughbred. Mr. Gully.
Motion to approve the rezoning.
And Mr. Gregory has motion and a second. Any discussion? Please record your vote. Is it ready? Whoop, wait. Man, this thing's lighting up like a Christmas tree. Okay, all votes in. All except mine, and I put mine in. Okay. Please record the vote. 19 yes, 0 no. It is approved. Next, we'll go into C under ordinances financial. This is ARPA approval of the Vol State EMS training tuition that we previously discussed. This is taking $30,000 out of the ARPA funding and basically parking it into this line item so that if we have this come up, the funds will be available and we won't have to do a budget amendment to move this money. This money is not being spent unless it's needed to be spent. Mr. Ferguson?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve by Mr. Ferguson. Ms. Baker?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Baker. Is there any further discussion on this one? Okay. All right. Are we ready to vote? Mr. Taylor. This thing does not want to take it. Okay, all votes in. What do we got? 18 yes, 1 no. It is approved. Like I say, if someone wants to offer an amended language to that, we can certainly take that up next month. Next is budget amendment, Highway Fund 131, state aid, retracing some stuff. This was, I think, was it just completely left off of their part of the budget, or is this something that they just needed added in? Just needed to add this in. This is Highway 131 state aid funding. Ms. Jackson, Jones. I couldn't hear you.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Okay, and Mr. Gully.
I could have missed something on this. Will this one affect maintenance of effort in the future? Or is it coming, is this just a transfer in their lines?
They're actually having to move $100 because of the maintenance of effort. So this is satisfying it for this year.
Second to that motion then?
Okay, we do have a motion and a second to approve this. Any further discussion? See none. Ready to vote? Please record your vote. All votes in. Anyone wish to change their vote? Please record the vote. 19 yes, 0 no. It is approved. We have no notaries for tonight. Commissioners, does anyone have any further business? Okay, public comments. Anyone in the public like to make a comment tonight? You'll get paper wads shot at you if you do, but go ahead. Mr. Gregory, you're recognized.
I'll make this quick then, appreciate it. Chris Gregory, of course, I'll let you pretty much know who I am. Just want to say I fully support Mr. Buckmaster's suggestion about opening the EMT training up to the volunteer firefighters. Whichever committee looks at that, in talking with one of the volunteers about that particular item, this person mentioned that they were interested in the EMT training, but their hesitation was the MOU, because going to work for the county would be a pay cut for that person. And who's going to take a pay cut to go through that training? So whatever committee examines that, I'd urge them to look at maybe amending that MOU as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Any other comments? Seeing none. Ms. Jackson Jones.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Mr. Taylor gets a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, stay here. We are adjourned. Thank you for your time and attention.